Right. Anyway, Eugene, I hope seeing you was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that was quite a surprise.
Yeah. Well, like I
This-
said, we
We go a long way back.
sort of know each other like
Yeah.
forever, but we
And
didn't.
to say that I did write you back, you know, that's one thing I always try to do when I made contact with people.
What?
I always try to communicate.
No, it wasn't. Yes, you did. It was the other record was the one you sent me. It just annoys me now because I've got it at home, and I used to play it at the time. And when I speak to you on Facebook, I'll tell you what the other record was that you actually sent me. All right, but
But here in Kansas City, we always was doing stuff, but we had no distribution here. Didn't have no money. We had to go out of Kansas City to really make money. I was hooked up on a chip.
so when did you first record? What years were your first record?
1967.
67. Yeah. Because I was saying to Crayge earlier on, I see this in my travels. The East Coast, Midwest, and some of the big cities, St. Louis and a few others, they had it going on in the 60s, but you found that a lot of the other...
That was the very first.
Right.
That was my very first recording. I was with a group called Business.
Yeah, Eugene
Record.
But I was saying, you found a lot of cities like this didn't really start to get it on until the 70s.
Yeah.
Because that's when communication got better, and because up until then, smaller city like this,
Yeah.
how could you compete with Chicago?
Music-wise, we could.
No, but I mean in terms of, they had the business.
Right.
How could you compete with Detroit or Chicago or even Memphis? Although, because at the time Memphis had its network.
Yeah, they did.
They
remember Stax?
Yeah, and Stax, and actually, interesting enough, Stax were very closely connected to Detroit because for a long time, Don Davis, who was a big wheel in Detroit, would come down and do a lot of his recordings in Stax.
Mm-hmm.
And in return, he'd help Stax with distribution. He'd help Stax with DJs, which was the other big deal.
Yeah.
Because it was all about payover. And
Yeah.
Don already had all the big DJs like Frankie Crocker, E. Rodney Jones up in Chicago, Jimmy Bishop in Philly, were already working for him. So he helped Stax get into those DJs as well. And without that network, back then, it doesn't matter how good your record was, it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
I remember when we recorded that record, Craig.
Yeah.
I got out of the studio about somewhere 12:30, 1 o'clock that night after we recorded. And tell you how fast they operate in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
At 5:30 that morning, I heard them playing that music on the radio.
Wow.
Just that fast.
And what they would have done, they would have gone, because all the studios those days would have an acetate machine.
Uh-huh.
They cut 2 or 3 dubs, and they'd have them, in a car going to the main DJs. That's next day to get played. Because if you get it hit or get it straight home from the drive time show in the morning.
Yeah. And they played this one twice,
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah. I mean, that's
And that song stayed in Jet Magazine for 9 months.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
But I'll show you how cut through it was, though, and how dangerous a game it was as well, because it was dangerous. There was a famous DJ in Detroit called the Percolator, Al Perkins. And Perk was notorious, and I say notorious. He had One Way, you remember the group One Way?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was his group. He was notorious for taking money and not playing records. And he took money on this one record. I can't remember now what record it was. He didn't know it. But the money behind the record was mob money. Didn't play it, came out the studio one night, gunned down in the street.
Wow.
And
That's the way it was.
You know it was
Oh,
that
yeah.
stuff. It was
That's
that
the way
stuff.
it was.
Well, I remember it was pretty gangster back then. But,
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. But
I was just coming into it.
But back then, that was the other thing that is quite often, and particularly in New York and Philly,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the money behind the record business was mob money, because it was a way for the mob to actually clean up money. You could lose so much money in record pressing and distribution.
I could tell you a story about tomorrow. They come and got me. They had a meeting with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They said they told me, said, we're going to let the little people have this. That's when we come up with, yes, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
And hit the choice.
Yeah.
They didn't like that.
No.
They did not like that.
No.
Came and got me, and hauled me down to River Key area and sit me in a room.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't nobody in that room but me and a table with a light above us. And they never did show up, but they was there.
Yeah.
I feel it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon this guy, his Shep, his name was Shep. The same with the lamb lights or something like that. He did Daddy's Home.
Yeah.
He came and got me. He took me back home. On the way home, he says, this guy's gonna take care of me the rest of my life. And it was like that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, I wouldn't want them to take care of me the rest of my life.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I tell you one thing, they paid me more money than I ever made.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
They would come get me to do a special party like a wedding.
Mm.
They had a big meeting come in town, they come and get me. And the money was, man.
Because actually, one of the original, whatever it was, 8 families or something, was one of them was based here.
You had the Bonadonos, you had the Chappellas.
That's it.
And there was another one, I can't think of the name.
But Kansas City was one of the old, whatever they used to call it, that governing body.
Yeah,
One of the main seats was Kansas.
Right, and I remember one night I was coming back from Chicago, I was flying back, and there's a bunch of them on the same plane with me, scared me to death.
Well, the guys up in Detroit would say that, you know, in the mob, but also Hoffa, they see Hoffa. Hoffa would come in on a session, and somebody would say, it's Hoffa's session. The Teamsters will put money into it for some reason, who knows why, but it would be a Teamster session, and so like,
Yeah, they just,
everybody
they
just
just terrorized.
would behave. You know?
And when they went to war with each other,
Mm.
oh man, they blow each other up in cars and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were old enough to remember that.
Well, I remember a bunch of stuff going on, blowing up and around here and stuff, and bombing the
That's what
clubs.
they were called, weren't they? Their overall thing was called the Commission, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
And Kansas had to take a seat on the Commission.
Right.
I remember.
And I'll tell you something just between you and I. When I planned this one gig for them, the second man from the top seat was the chief of police here in Kansas City.
Mhm.
Yeah. But most of the stuff that was dealing with came from North Kansas City.
Mm.
Right,
They call this side of town the little people.
right.
Yeah. It's like,
So the north side was mainly where the Italian community was.
So he knows the history of it.
well, you came up
But see, it's funny.
20 years behind.
Sometimes when you actually get to know the history,
Mm-hmm.
you suddenly go, well, that makes sense now. Why that?
Yeah.
It puts sometimes things into context.
Yeah.
When you understand, it's like in Detroit, the whole city. You know, why of all the cities it collapsed in the way it did. Well, the history of the mismanagement and the corruption in the city goes back a long, long way. In the early 60s, all the way through the 60s, when they were putting the big new interstates in,
Mm-hmm.
they used the interstates for segregation. And what they did was the way that they put the interstates to cut through the city created the current black ghettos that you have. So the west side that you have now, which is Highland Park and all those things. As far as they were concerned, that was always a difficult area, so they just literally cut it off with the interstates. And then they had several routes they could have come into the town, and there was one area which used to be the old nightclub area.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Black Bottom. And they drove the interstate straight through there and demolished it all. And in a heartbeat, wiped out the entire nightclub and all the clubs that used to, this goes back to the jazz era, the early 60s, they used to support the black community in Detroit, deliberate. And then, you know, as things started to happen, they created the architecture for its own framing as a city. And then, of course, you had Mayor Coleman. And I say, you know, I'd like to understand the history as well. Mayor Coleman, who was just corrupt as they come. And Detroit voted a black mayor thinking, you know, the first time, you know, we're on the right track. And he turned out to be more corrupt than all the white mayors. Oh, seriously. And Coleman did, and worse than that, he did 3 terms. And And in those 3 terms, he ripped the soul out of the city. You know, and then all you needed then was the motor industry crash, and it was ready to happen. It was just scary as hell. So then you suddenly even that, put it in context. Sometimes why one little group don't have a hit. There were so many powers and things that could go against you that you never even saw.
Yeah. When I was coming up, there was like a big boom of all the groups and stuff, and competition of groups and stuff, and we were playing at the Bunny Club,
Yeah, right.
AGs, and all
Kansas
these clubs.
City
It was just booming. I mean,
Kansas City was booming with time.
I mean, it was so many, and they all were big bands, like anywhere from 11 pieces with horns and dancing.
They were all good.
And they all had uniform down.
Yeah.
I wish we would have had videos of that stuff, man.
I got a video on my website of Clyde with Betty Jo, Clyde, him and her.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I got a unit of those on that too.
Yeah, it's probably from my side, isn't it? Or
Yes.
it's linked
I don't know. I don't know what.
From your YouTube side,
I got it
probably.
off of YouTube.
Yeah, that was something I put out there.
So just going off at a slight tangent, you don't like collectors.
No.
They're a pain in the ass, aren't they?
Yeah.
And
They buy your music and they ain't got no money.
Mhm.
Well, I'll pay you on the first.
yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Although the other thing, which is just to me, just think it's a bit like one of these people that buys Van Goghs and then puts it in a bank vault and nobody ever sees it again. What's the point? Music was made to be heard.
Yeah.
These collectors think they get them and they put it in a certain cup.
And that's the main thing. That's the main
They
thing.
just keep them
They just want to put it on there.
And the wall.
They've got them on a wall, but I had this music. I've got this one guy, and he lives near me, and he annoys me, right? And and this shows he has no appreciation of music. So he's got his racks there.
Uh-huh.
He's got blue sleeves here, and that's all records that are supposedly worth $1,000,
Uh-huh.
right? And then he's got green sleeves here, and they're records that are worth maybe more than $500.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, then.
Your music isn't being heard.
I'm going to really cuss it. What the fuck's that got to do with music? Really? I mean, the guys. I mean, he might as well be collecting coins or hubcaps or.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And these guys, quite often, in any collecting sphere, there's always very wealthy people in there, and these guys are quite often very wealthy. So they're big guys like me, and we're trying to get hold of records, and they put them away in there. Nobody hears it, And I'm not a poor man, but I'm not very wealthy. So I can afford to come here and find the records, but I'm competing against these idiots, and they are idiots. And now, unfortunately, they're starting to appear in America as well.
Right.
There's people up in Chicago that are just the same. Bobby Rahim,
Yeah.
Give me strength.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's the thing.
Eugene.
Finally.
I know that's y'all getting the meat after all these years. That's probably
Well,
that's a plus to your whole visit.
Well, I mean, Eugene will, he'll testify to this. When the US didn't care about this music, since I was literally 12 or something.
Well, that's the same thing that happened. I mean, the reason Bloodstone went, they had to leave and go to England to get a record deal.
In not just the UK, but across Europe, we grew up with this, and it was our first music. It wasn't our own stuff like the Stones or the Beatles. To us, this was our music.
Yeah.
And again, social history. You understand, most of us, we all grew up in the industrial cities, not in London, where it was all hip and whatever. We grew up in the industrial cities, and actually this music meant more to us. Both the love songs and the ghetto songs about, crime and stuff like that. We understood that more than the music was getting made by people in the UK. It was stuff coming out of Detroit, when the Temps were working with Norman Whitfield and they were talking about junkies and stuff like that. We understood that because that happened in our streets as well. And we connected with this music. We grew up with it. It's an overused term, but it.
And that was time. It was fun time back then. We would always, Craig, we didn't have, if we'd have had this back then, imagine where we'd be now. Because we would pack up and go to Chicago and record in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any Were there many big studios over in St. Louis?
Not really.
No, I mean there were a few labels there.
There was a couple there,
Yeah,
but St. Louis was basically like Kansas City.
yeah. There's more distribution through St. Louis, wasn't it?
Right.
There were some pressing plants out there,
Yeah.
as well. I can never. It's like when I try to name, big labels, and what I don't mean big in terms of publicly well known, but necessarily ones that have over 100 releases. I can't think of any out of St. Louis like that.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody that was really popular.
Yeah.
Like in St. Louis.
No,
Now,
because
now
Chicago.
Kansas City, Kansas,
Yeah.
and Kansas City, Missouri had better music than St. Louis back in the day.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying again, but it's a city I just don't.
And I wouldn't say better, but we were able to realize we didn't have the recording facilities that was really able to compete with Chicago and Detroit. So we left.
Do you ever remember a group called the Kansas City Playboys? I'm sure they actually were from Kansas City, but they recorded up in Chicago or something like that.
That was a long, long time ago.
Oh yeah, they're recording with 67,
In the 60s.
67, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have been, and they were probably listening to their voices. They were probably already way into their 20s, so they were, they were probably a harmony group originally, or called a harmony group.
Yeah.
They sounded
There was a group around here called the Chandeliers. Did you have any music on them?
no,
Chandeliers.
no, I've got one. No, that's
You're blueberry sweet. You
No.
know, got that.
no, I haven't.
I'm gonna give you that contact when I
Yeah.
send you some. Give
Yeah.
you contact because they had some great music.
Mm.
That was in the early. They were in the early '60s here in Kansas City, Missouri.
So,
Chandeliers.
which were the record labels here then? Though, were there any
Yeah.
at all?
What record label was there on? I'm trying to think. Wow.
Did Kansas have any of its own record labels?
It had a record label. It was a very small label,
Right.
but they had Forte Records.
Right. Forte.
Um,
Oh, Forte. Yeah, I know Forte because Marvel was on Forte.
Mine was on Forte.
So that was early 70s, wasn't it?
That was early '70s.
Yeah. I mean,
But this group was on another label out of Kansas City. I don't know.
Right. I've got most of the Forte things.
It wasn't King. It was something else.
Yeah.
I have to find out.
Yeah.
I got that information at home.
Yeah.
I'll get that.
But no, I got most of the Forte things because they actually. I mean, they not a lot, but they must have had 20 releases, something like that.
25.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's good stuff as well. Good stuff.
And James Whitney had a 45 on there.
Mm.
Oh man, it was awesome. I don't know if you ever heard it.
Mm.
On Forte label.
Mhm.
Ooh. Awesome. He still was singing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And there was a guy called something Taylor. Was it on there as well? Anyway.
Ellis Taylor.
Yeah, I've got quite a few of them.
Yeah. You do have the CD record on Smoke, right?
I've got the album.
The album.
Yeah. Yeah, the original album. It's a great album. Whole album's good. Yeah. That's
The same guy that did this song here, the one that I own the one copy,
yeah.
Elmer Overton,
Yeah.
Edmund Overton, and I wrote that.
Right.
That
Well, like I said, if you do find another one of those, let me know. I'd love to copy of it.
yeah.
It's nice working. Yeah, so I've got the Smoke album already.
Yeah.
Because that got distributed quite well, the Smoke album.
Yeah.
So I picked mine up. I want to say in this deep south somewhere, but I remember years ago getting a whole collection and it was amongst those. So it must have got distributed quite well.
There's a lot of wrongdoings there too. I'm still waiting on my check.
Yeah. Well, don't be looking for the mailman anytime soon. So.
It didn't matter to me back then.
No.
We were just mainly trying to open doors. We were writers and music arrangers, and
Yeah.
if we could get the doors open for somebody
Yeah.
and feed some of this talent to Kansas City, he's having an outlet, you know.
Yeah.
But that never happened.
This is, I'll give you a long list of things to think about. Any of your old buddies that were involved in production, because this is something I do sort of collect. There's one thing I sort of collect, acetates. Anybody got any old dub plates? I love dub plates. I don't know why, it's a romantic thing. The dub plate was the first, because it was the first thing in the process that would come after recording. I've got 300 dub plates at home. In fact, I've just come out of saying Crayge Lindesay, I've just come out of
You talking about the master lacquer?
yeah, the acetates. You know, I've got some in the car.
I got the steel.
No. The steels that were used for the pressing, right, two halves. But sometimes, as a sort of demo, they go and cut some acetates, which are those metal plates with vinyl on. Remember those things?
Yeah.
They're steel centers and they got lacquer on them.
Yeah.
I love those things.
You only supposed to play them a few times and then they
No,
start
well, that's nonsense.
that's
What everybody said. You can only play them a few times.
Yeah.
I've got some that I probably played 1,000 times and they're still fine. But
I
sometimes.
don't know if I have these.
But anyway, I've just come out of seeing this old Leon, who was a really good arranger producer in Philly. He did. I mean, most of these groups are so way back. Nobody ever remembers doing.
Leon. Was Leon up?
No. He was the generation before Leon. I mean, this guy was working all the way through the 60s. He was working with Frank Virtue at Virtue Studios and stuff. Anyway, Leon, he had like one of those big brown shopping bags. He went, go and have a look at that shopping bag from that room. And it was all full of acetates of recordings he'd done back in the day. And so, but what's fun on some of these acetates, they're alternative takes. Because they do a thing, listen and then play it and listen to anything. Or they sometimes they cut 3 or 4 takes,
Mm-hmm.
and then they take to somebody like Jimmy Bishop and go, which he thinks the one's going to hit on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Do it like promo, uses promo tools. So they're in the car now, a whole bunch of Virtue acetates. And I'm looking at some of these thinking, I don't think these even came out, they're fantastic.
Yeah, the alternate versions or whatever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, we had a few of those, but I don't know what happened.
No, but if you ever, any of the old producers you know, they still got any old acetates, I love them.
I'll check.
Yeah, because I said to you earlier on, that's a West Coast pressing. I can look at a record, I can quite often say, right, this says so and so. This, or the address on the label says Kansas City, but there must be a West Coast connection because that's a West Coast pressing. Or I look at the details on there. Right, so he used to work with so and so. I learned so much from records. I love them. I'm crazy mad for it. And I like to, when I do my show.
It's the music business.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I do the show, and the other reason I'm here talking to you is if I play a track, I can actually tell them a story about it as well. I don't just blankly play records. I can say, I chatted to Eugene, he said, this happened on that session or whatever.
Right.
And it puts the record in context.
Yeah.
It makes it live. Bring it to a life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can just be
There's not too much there going on though.
No, there aren't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just put on a mixtape
Yeah.
Instead.
A program.
But then
Back in the day when we cut this stuff,
Mm.
we had a dream.
Yeah.
We had a dream. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
We knew we was gonna make it. The very next day, we felt that strong about it, but it never happened.
Yeah.
It never happened.
But,
Well, we're getting to have play here, we're getting to have play here, we're getting to have play here. When is the big one coming?
yeah.
Now I'm gray-headed and the big one ain't came yet.
Yeah.
But you said Gatson, the brother Gatson was where you learned all your stuff from, or what? I mean,
Yeah, he's the one that,
and what did he do? He was a singer or player?
no, he started at Mannion High School.
Mhm.
And when he graduated from Mannion, he put a band together called the Derbies.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 5-piece band.
Mm-hmm.
2 horns, bass guitar, he played the lead guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and a drummer, which was his brother, Gat.
Mm-hmm.
And so they played all the major acts that came through Kansas City. They were the backup band for them.
Did they have a lead singer at any time called Tommy?
That's Tommy.
Tommy and the Darbies.
Tommy and the Derbies, that's him.
Right. This is scary. He might have. I've been searching for 10 years. A record came out on a tiny, tiny little Houston label, right? But it's by Tommy and the Darbies, right? Now there are two Tommy and the Darbies. Tommy Tate out of Jackson, Mississippi. He did lots of those great southern sides on Cocoa label and stuff like that. Tommy Tate had a group called the Darbies, right? But I've listened to this particular track. I've got a sound file for it. It ain't Tommy's voice. It's a different group entirely.
Yeah, this is Tommy Katz.
Right. So I then found on the web that there was a group called the Darbies out of here, and the song's called "I'm Going Back to Houston."
I don't know.
No.
That's not him. That's not Tommy Katz.
What?
I don't remember him.
Is he alive?
Yes.
Ask him if, because he may be in a one-off recording he did somewhere. Ask me if he ever cut a record called "Going Back to Houston."
Okay.
You won't forget that as a title. I'm going back to Houston. And it's by Tommy and the Darbies. If it's the same guys, I'll be looking for this one. And then the other group that you will remember, are any of the guys in the Carpet still alive?
Yes, Donald Cox. I
Oh,
talk to him every day.
Before I leave town, if you get a chance, can you ring him? I've been trying to find either one of their records, because they did 245s.
Yeah.
And
I just can't win.
yeah.
And what was the other website?
One is one's slightly later than the other. There's a bit of a gap between the two. So one's a very 60s recording,
Right.
and the second one has that slightly more early 70s feel to it, slightly smoother, outstanding harmonies. I've been trying to find either of those.
You don't know Donald Cox, do you?
yeah, I know Donald.
No? Yeah.
I mean, I met him a few times or whatever.
And there was a guy that, so now we're talking about it back then, there was a guy that they were all hooked up with that had a really odd sort of like, say either a Jewish name, but he was the, like either the producer, Rohart or Rumba Hart or something.
Rojas?
Rojas, probably.
Rojas.
He was involved in all their production work or something like that, or he owned the labels that they worked for. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I think he has the masters on all of that. I think Donald was telling me he has the masters on all
Right.
that stuff.
Is he still alive, this guy?
I don't know.
Well, because they cut some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, he left here. He went to Chess Records.
Mm.
Right.
He went to Chess Records the same time we went to Brunswick Records.
Right.
Marvel Whitney went with the Isley Brothers.
But they didn't go with the Carpets, did they? They must have changed the name.
No, they went as the. Well, when they left here, they were the. It was the Carviers. When they did the record, they changed their name to the Carpets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But no.
And then that record that the first record was in the '67, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And then they did another one.
Which may be 70.
Yes.
Yeah. Gorgeous. And I've been trying to track down one of those for forever.
Yeah.
Because, anyway, if you speak to him, I'd love to chat.
I'll talk to him.
I'd love to chat. If he's got the old, I'd love to see an old photograph he's got one of the group. I've never
I
seen.
got a photograph of the group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scan it to me. Scan it. Can you
I'll
scan
scan it and send it to you.
I've got some. I mean, I'm a DJ and I do everything that I say I do. And you,
Oh no, she fell down. That's right.
But I do love some of the memorabilia stuff.
Yeah.
Remember the old rainbow poster
You okay?
that used to hammer up on the telegraph?
Oh yeah.
Right?
All right,
An old buddy of mine,
we're
he's
getting ready to come out.
a record promo guy, old road guy.
All right.
Down in Memphis. And for whatever reason, he used to collect these. If he was going doing his road trips, he gave them all to me a few years ago. And I've got groups like Skip Mahoney and the Casuals, remember them, over DC way. Big posters for them. Groups I've never ever heard of, and probably never will. A group from Baton Rouge called the Fluorescent Fog. Never heard of them, never seen anything by them. I've got this great big poster for them.
I'll tell you another guy you might want to talk to. He's an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Alan Bell.
Right.
Now, Alan Bell, he's He handled all of our music and stuff back in his day.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
See if I have a chord. I don't know. What would I have a chord? Yeah. I don't have it here.
Well, again, Eugene, I'm definitely coming back. So if you don't this time, the next time I'm here.
Yeah.
Because if by next time I'm here, I've got a whole bunch of people to see.
Yeah.
Then I'll plan to stay for a few days. We can all go out to dinner or something and
Yeah.
have something to speak.
Yeah. But Alan had information on everybody, even from the sax record.
Mm.
He got all the information because he used to book all these people.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so he was a booker as well, was he?
Yeah, at that time, back in the day.
Right.
Yeah, he's the one that brought the white audience over to the black side.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing. He did it.
So who was he the main booking agency in town in those days?
I don't know if he was the main booking agent, but he had an agency called America's Best Attraction.
Right. Yeah, he would be interesting.
Yes.
Because over the years I've learned who to go and ask questions about.
Yeah.
From. And booking agents.
His name is Alan Bell. And first time I went on the road, he was the one that got me out there.
Mm.
You know, and I was playing for Air Force bases and stuff like that, and making some real change.
Mm.
And the Derbies and the Bloodstones, all of us worked under him.
Mm.
Marvel Whitney.
Yeah. Wow. This has been a fun morning.
I'm glad I came over.
Well, I'm not glad I made the 1,200 mile drive. Really? Really? I mean,
Craig, you want to send me a copy of that picture you took?
What? Oh yeah, I'm giving it.
but, but I mean, it is. I mean, I get back home, people say, "There's madness driving that." I don't know. Trust me, the moments I spend actually hearing the stories, it makes me worthwhile. And I have, and then I can share it. I enjoy it, and I think I have a good listenership on the radio show, and that's one of the reasons they ring in. People often go, "You love the stories." But it's telling the story. It's important. And I'm another thing. I'm a great believer of the jazz era. The really creative period of the jazz era in the 50s, coming into the 60s. Unfortunately, that generation, many of them, people didn't collect the stories, and so all the stories then became only second-hand from people that had known them. I still have a chance to meet people first-hand. Capture the story now.
That's Sir Garrett stuff. You know Sir Garrett?
So Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Around Dixon thing.
Yeah.
He had some of those records and stuff he's been bringing over in 45. That was the stuff he was doing. On CD.
Yeah.
Some of them that Smiley was doing. Did you ever finish all that?
No.
It's still a work in progress.
No, I was gonna do that over here. Yeah, that's the thing. I was gonna do that over here. Right now, Keith is in New York, working with some DJs in New York, doing some stuff with Bloodstone. I need to talk to you about that too, Craig. Bloodstone album.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you about that. See where that is. We're gonna push them. I don't know if you know this girl, Socia O'Shea. What's her name? They're pushing her stuff. Ricky Dotson, they're really hot on Ricky Dotson. Somebody else, I'm trying to think. Bobby's stuff is, well, they really trying to convince me to talk to Bobby and have him to change the lyrics and one just going three of the times they keep telling me to tell them don't give up. Music is great, but you need to change the lyrics of at least three of those songs. So I'm gonna talk to Bobby.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I told you, but they wanted to have an interview with Bobby there is some really, I'm gonna talk to DJ first.
They haven't had it one with Betty Joe yet.
Yeah, they got it. You don't have a copy of that?
But, yeah,
Uh-huh. I'll give you a copy, I got it.
how did it go? Yeah, wait, I want you to do that.
Which station is it?
It's there. Take it by.
Take care of that 90.1
Yeah, it's just import there.
community.
Community radio. A lot of our friends and stuff that are old musicians, and like you said, the DJ,
Larry J.
and who's that on the
Larry J. and
one you just said you was on the Ruby Grant, yeah.
and there's others there that play out stuff, but these two, they are adamant on. They're always calling me, who you got over there? Who you got? Who you got? And they go to, I think that this, they like the stories. You know? Everybody has a different story, basically the same.